The rise of Christianity in Egypt was linked to Alexandria during the 1st century. Despite the scarcity of material and documentary evidence for this period, all traditions indicate that Saint Mark the Evangelist was the first patriarch of Alexandria and the preaching apostle of Egyptian land. A complete reference to the Christianization of Egypt didn't appear until the 4th century in the history of Eusebius, prelate of Caesarea, who report the story of the establishment of the church in Alexandria by Mark and the later patriarch of him. Alexandria was a suitable environment for the growth of the Christian religion as a world city. The diversity of the races, Egyptian, Greek, Jewish, and Roman, in addition of its great library, which has encouraged the attraction of Christian teachers such as Clement of Alexandria and Origen. In the late 2nd and 3rd century, the writing of them with the writing of the Bishop of Patriarch of Alexandria, such as Athanasius, contribute to establish a distinctive Egyptian Christian identity, which result in conflict with other Christian leaders. Referring to Nag Hammadi Codex, the position in Egypt was very difficult with Gnostic community. Alexandria was an international city populated by many races. Its Jewish community was the most important outside Palestine. The Christian faith arrived in Egypt before the preaching of Saint Mark. As Egypt is near to the land of Jews, so some of the inhabitants of Egypt and the region of Libya that are about Kairouan were among those who witnessed the miracle of Pentecost. So the Christian faith was known before the advent of St. Mark, but it spread and attracted more and more believers. Mark, the apostle arrival to Alexandria, was mostly through the oasis. While he wandered as a missionary in the street, his shoes had been torn. A shoemaker in the city, Inianus, fixed it, and while the cobbler was doing this, he entered the stand in his hand and blew it up. He shouted, Theos Hoseos, meaning God is one. So Saint Mark seized this opportunity and took his hand and held it. Then he began to preach him about that one God who shouted in his name while he didn't know him. The cobbler believed in his word and invited him to his house and gathered his relatives and preached to them Christ and baptized them, and they were the first believer in all Egypt. The period from the 1st century till the 7th century witnessed the emergence of many heresies that were initially influenced by manifestation of Judaism and ancient pagan religion. It also witnessed the emergence of a controversy about the nature of Christ, which led to many religious councils, the most prominent of which is the Council Chalcedonic, which led to the separation of the Coptic Church from the Christian Church. The great devastation of the Egyptian monastery and their church occurred during the Persian invasion of Egypt. During the 9th century, the Christians were forced to show their identity by wearing yellow turban and certain quality on fabric on their belt. Natural factor had an impact on the demolition of some churches. Alexandria suffered many times from many earthquakes. From all above, it becomes clear the reason for the lack of the first church that are still remaining and the difficulty of tracking the construction movement in the Coptic religious establishment. But we can investigate some of architectural material, whether in their place or the remainder that were reused in other buildings, which can be summarized as churches still standing in their place, St. Mark Church. Architecture remain used in modern church, Marimina Fleming and St. Saba Church. Architectural remain used in mosque, Electoral Mosque, and Architecture remained used in other buildings, kite bay, and faculty of art. Church still standing, like St. Mark Church. It dates back to the 1st century, facing the sea, perhaps to the east of Estelcel. The present Church of Mark is still located in the same place where the first church was built, as it was repeatedly renewed through the ages. The architectural feature of the church indicates that it was built on a system of cellular carried on 6 marble columns that were given by Elena to the church and still remain till now. During the reign of Pope Cnut III, the church was expanded from the western side while preserving the basilica's plan, and the 6th column were transferred to the facade of the new church. The column stand on a square planus topped by a base with 2 round rings. The lower one is larger than the upper. The column is monolithic, made of marble, in which the color is mixed from white and gray. The column ended at the top with a circle ring, followed by Corinthian capital. 2 small volute members above the capital and in the middle of the decoration across in 4 corners. It is worth noting that during the recent expansion were found the remains of granite column and the 2 square bases. The columns are similar to Pompeii pillar, so it is likely that they date back to the 4th century, and their use is unknown. Maybe they were used in previous buildings in the church. Recently, in 1993, a water cistern dating back to the Byzantine period, 1st century, was discovered inside the churchyard. The water cistern contains a number of granite columns which are not single style. Each column is connected to the adjacent column with a vault. Column capital decorated with acanthus. Referring to the Bedata, in her book Antiquities in Christian Era, she reported that Sakit al-Nasara has a channel that feeds 4 cisterns as follows. The first one is located here, and the second one in Nabi Daniel Street, the third one Turret Kibisi, and the third and the last one under Shikoler's store. And this is confirmed by the discovery of the cistern of the church. Especially that street of Nabi Daniel in which the church is located was subjected to a ground subsidence 3 times. The first in 1965, and it's known in the media as the fall of the bride of Nabi Daniel. The second in 2017, and the last one in 2020 in front of the French Culture Center. Architecture remains used in modern church. Marimina Flynn, director of Coptic Museum, asked to obtain a permission from the Ministry of Public Education to transfer 4 columns of marble with their bases and the capital from St. Minas of Mauritius, modern Abomey, and erected them around the altar of the new church. The bases of the column bearing the ciborium are valid. We find the base of column on the right side are octagonal in shape, showing the bases on the left side are square shaped and higher than the St. Mark Church. Some scratches on the shaft of the column as a result of the transport operation. The capital of the column, although incomplete, the remainder indicate that it was decorated with floral motif. St. Saba Church, the most important characteristic of the St. Saba Church is not only the architectural style, but the church nave contains 8 granite columns, all of which belong to the 1st century and were reused in the church. According to El Falaki map, we find that the location of the church corresponds to L2 and R2 Street, and this area is close to the Mosque of 100 columns. The column matches to Pompey column in shape and style, so it is more likely that the column dates back to the 4th century BC. Attarin Mosque is the current site of Attarin Mosque. There was the church established by Patriarch Athanasius. At the site of the Mosque of the South column, the Church of the Virgin Mary was built by the Patriarch Timothy I, and it is the oldest Christian church in Alexandria. By the 6th century, the church replaced by the mosque of the southern column during the Islamic conquest of Egypt. Amr ibn al-As built this mosque, also known as the Western Mosque. Attarin Mosque contained a number of columns dating back to the 1st century from the remains of the church, which reused in the mosque of the southern column and reused another time in the mosque. Out of the mosque, we noticed a shaft decorated with decoration moon, which in Christianity symbolizes baptism. And there is the same style of the column with its decoration in the church of St. Mark. Another column decorated with triangle in opposite position, which refer to incarnation and resurrection. Cairo citadel, knowing that Pharos Island during the Arab conquest had two churches, the Church of Sophia and the Church of St. Faustus. The castle preserved some Coptic architectural elements, such as the apse, in addition to a number of columns inside a ground cistern water. In addition of a capital of one of the columns holding the roof of the water cistern with a canvas leaf. The northeastern tower has 3 parts of the granite column, with a diameter of 45 centimeters. These pieces were reused in horizontal position to support the castle tower. And it is likely that they are the remains of the pillar of the Archangel Raphael that Pope Theophilus built at this site. Finally, the 2 columns in the Faculty of Art. A mission from the college headed by Dr. Fawzi Fakhrani set out to the area of the College of Medicine to conduct survey of the piece of land where the university was intending to build a faculty of dentistry. And there, the Archaeological Center revealed the existence of architectural remains of installation from Byzantine area that are probably of a religious nature. The mission has 2 columns of grey granite, each carrying a carved cross, and they were transferred to the College of Arts nowadays. Thanks for your attention.